They say nights are meant for rest, but some nights don't let you sleep. They watch you instead. I moved into the apartment at the start of winter. Cheap rent, quiet area, and a view of the city lights. Perfect, I thought. The first few days were normal. Too normal. Then the nights began to change. Every night at exactly 2:17 a.m., I woke up. No alarm. No noise. Just a sudden, sharp awareness, like someone had whispered my name directly into my mind. My heart would pound as I stared at the ceiling, afraid to move. At first, I blamed stress, but then I noticed something strange. My bedroom clock always stopped at 2:17. Frozen. Not broken, just paused. When morning came, it worked perfectly again. On the fourth night, I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, coming from the hallway outside my bedroom door. I live alone. I held my breath, listening as the footsteps stopped right outside my door. Someone, or something, stood there for a long time. I could feel it. The air felt heavier, colder. Then silence. When I finally gathered the courage to open the door, the hallway was empty. But on the floor, right in front of my door, were wet footprints. Bare feet, leading to my room, not away from it. That night, I barely slept. And when I did, I dreamed of standing in my hallway, watching myself sleep, smiling. The next evening, I tried staying awake past 2:17. Coffee, lights on, TV playing loudly. I was determined to catch whatever was happening. At 2:16, the TV shut off by itself. The lights flickered. Then the clock froze. 2:17. I felt a presence behind me. Breathing. Slow. Cold. And that's when I realized something terrifying. The footsteps I heard every night weren't coming toward my room. They were already inside. After that night, I was afraid of sleeping. I started noticing things during the day too. The mirrors in the apartment felt wrong. Whenever I passed them, my reflection lagged, just for a second, smiling when I wasn't. I searched online for the apartment's history. Buried deep in old forums, I found one post. People who live there complain about waking up at night. Always the same time, 2:17 a.m. According to local rumors, the building was constructed over an old shelter where people hid during a citywide blackout decades ago. Many never came out. They died in the dark, together, watching each other. That night, I taped a note on my mirror. Do not look at 2:17. When the time came, the familiar pressure filled the room. The air grew icy. I heard whispering, dozens of voices overlapping. Look! I kept my eyes shut. Something crawled onto my bed. The mattress sank beside me. I could feel its weight, its presence inches from my face. Its breath smelled like damp concrete and old fear. Look at us, the voices begged. My eyes burned. Tears streamed down my face. I wanted to look. Something inside me needed to. The whispers turned angry. Fingers pressed against my eyelids, forcing them open. For a split second, I saw it. Not one thing. Many. Figures standing around my bed. Faces pale, eyes wide and unblinking. Their mouths were stretched into smiles that were too big, too hungry. And behind them, another version of me. Standing, watching, smiling the widest. I screamed, and the lights exploded into brightness. Morning came, but something was wrong. I couldn't see my reflection anymore. Not in the mirror, not on my phone screen. It was like I had stopped existing, except at night. And at 2:17 a.m., I could feel myself watching from somewhere else. I stopped leaving the lights off. I stopped sleeping in my bed. I slept on the couch, then the floor, then not at all. But every night, at 2:17, I felt myself slipping, like something else was taking control. I set up my phone camera to record myself while I slept. The footage destroyed me. At exactly 2:17, my body sat up. Slowly, mechanically, my eyes opened, but they weren't mine. Too dark, too empty. I stood up and walked into the hallway, smiling. Then I spoke. I'm almost ready. The next night, I tried leaving the apartment before 2:17. As I reached the door, the hallway stretched impossibly long. The exit moved farther away with every step. The lights above flickered, revealing figures lining the walls. Watching, waiting. You can't leave, they whispered. Nights belong to us. I ran back inside, slamming the door shut. That's when I noticed new footprints on the floor. Not wet, not bare. They looked like shadows burned into the ground, and they were coming from my bedroom, leading to me. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and stayed awake. At 2:17, the door handle turned violently. Something on the other side was laughing. In my voice, "I'm done waiting," it said. The mirror fogged up. 3 words appeared, written from the inside. "Let me stay." I smashed the mirror. Behind it was darkness, deep, endless, and something inside it opened its eyes. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't work anymore. There is no morning, only night after night after night. I realized the truth too late. The apartment doesn't haunt people. It replaces them. Every resident leaves, eventually, but not completely. The thing that watches at 2:17 learns your face, your voice, your thoughts. And one night, it steps out, and you stay behind. I remember trying to scream as it walked into my body. I remember being pulled backward into the dark behind the mirror. Now I watch. Every night, I stand in the hallway with the others. We wait. We smile. A new tenant moved in today. They think the apartment is quiet, cheap, perfect. I can't warn them. I can only watch as they fall asleep. The clock on their wall ticks. 2:16, 2:17. They wake up suddenly, confused, afraid. I step closer to the bed, my feet leaving wet footprints on the floor. I lean down and whisper softly into their ear. "Don't worry, you'll get used to the nights." And somewhere behind the mirror, I hear them screaming. The first night it happened, I thought I was imagining it. I worked the late shift at a small grocery store on the edge of the city. Every night at exactly 1:48 a.m., I lock up and walk home through the same empty streets. The lamps flicker, dogs bark in the distance, and the air feels heavier than it should. That night, I heard footsteps behind me. Not rushed, not random, matching my pace. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I turned around. The street was empty, stretching endlessly in both directions. No cars, no people, just the buzzing streetlight above me. I laughed nervously and kept walking. The footsteps returned, closer this time. When I reached my apartment building, I ran inside and slammed the door shut. My heart wouldn't slow down. From my window, I watched the street below. Nothing. I convinced myself it was exhaustion. But the next night, it happened again. Same footsteps, same rhythm. This time, I didn't stop walking. As I reached my building, I felt something brush against my shoulder. Ice cold, like fingers that didn't belong to anyone living. I didn't look back. That was my first mistake. That night, I dreamed of walking the same street, except my reflection followed me in the shop windows, smiling, one step behind. When I woke up, my shoes were muddy. I hadn't gone outside. On the third night, I noticed something worse. The streetlights turned off behind me one by one as I walked. Darkness swallowed the road, closing in like a mouth. And in that darkness, something whispered my name. Not from behind me, from inside my head. When I reached my door, I found wet footprints leading into my apartment. They weren't mine. They were already waiting for me. And that's when I realized the nights weren't just watching me. They were following me home. I decided to take a different route home. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind. New street, new lights, new sounds. That's what I told myself. At 1:48 a.m., I locked the store and turned left instead of right. The city felt wrong immediately. The buildings were closer together, leaning inward like they were listening. The air was colder, thicker. My phone lost signal within seconds. Halfway down the street, I noticed something impossible. There were no intersections, no turns, just one long road stretching ahead. Even though I knew that wasn't how the city was built. I heard footsteps again, but this time, they were in front of me, walking backward. I stopped. The sound stopped. Slowly, I looked up. Under the streetlight ahead stood a man, or something shaped like one. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, his shadow pointing toward me instead of away. He smiled without opening his mouth. "You walk well at night," he said. They noticed. I ran. The street stretched longer, the lights blinking out faster. The footsteps multiplied, dozens of them, circling me, whispering my name. When I finally reached my building, it wasn't my building anymore. The windows were dark. The entrance was sealed shut, covered in scratches like something had tried desperately to get out. Behind me, the man whispered, "You brought the night with you." I woke up on my apartment floor, gasping for air. Morning sunlight streamed through the window, but when I checked my shoes, they were still muddy, and the scratches were on my door. From the inside, I stopped going to work. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back on that street, walking, listening, followed. During the day, shadows lingered too long. My reflection in mirrors blinked when I didn't. Sometimes it didn't blink at all. At night, I heard footsteps inside my walls. Not above me, inside them. At 1:48 a.m., my body started moving on its own. I would stand up, walk to the door, and press my ear against it, listening like something was calling me from the other side. I began to hear instructions in my head. Walk, open, join. I tried chaining the door shut, boarding the windows, sleeping with the lights on. Nothing worked. One night, I woke up standing in the stairwell of my building, barefoot, cold concrete under my feet. The lights flickered as shadows climbed the walls around me. Figures stood on every floor, waiting. They looked human, but their faces were wrong, stretched thin, eyes too deep. "You walk with us now," they whispered. I realized the truth then. The street didn't follow people. It collected them. Every night Walker left something behind. A reflection, a shadow, a piece of themselves. And now, there wasn't much of me left. I felt my smile widen against my will. The footsteps stopped following me. Because I was becoming one of them. I don't walk home anymore. I walk others. Every night, I stand under a streetlight that never turns off. I listen for footsteps, nervous, human ones. When I hear them, I follow at a careful distance. I match their pace. I stop when they stop. I make sure they feel safe enough not to run. Sometimes they reach their building and think they've escaped. They haven't, because the night isn't a place. It's a pattern, and once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. Tonight, I'm following someone new. They keep checking behind them, their breath shaky, their hands trembling. I want to tell them not to be afraid. I want to tell them it doesn't hurt. When they reach their door, I step closer. I whisper softly, just loud enough for them to hear. "You're walking perfectly." They freeze. I smile, even though they can't see me, because soon, they will, and the night will walk them home forever. I never used to sleep with the lights on. Nights were quiet, harmless things to me. That changed after I started receiving the calls. The first call came at 3:03 a.m. My phone rang once, then stopped. When I checked the screen, there was no missed call, no notification, nothing. I tried to sleep again. At 3:03 the next night, my phone vibrated in my hand. This time, the screen lit up with an incoming call. Unknown. I didn't answer. A voicemail appeared instantly. When I played it, I heard my own voice whispering, "Don't forget tonight." I didn't remember recording it. Over the next few nights, the calls continued. Always at 3:03. Always from unknown. Always my voice, but wrong. Slower. Colder. Stranger things followed. My bedroom door would be open when I woke up, even though I locked it. My lights flickered only at night. The clock on my wall skipped from 3:02 straight to 3:04. One evening, I found a notebook on my desk. It wasn't mine. Inside, every page was filled with my name, written over and over in shaky handwriting. At the bottom of the last page was a sentence. "We talk when you sleep." That night, I stayed awake, staring at my phone. At 3:03 a.m., it rang. This time, I answered. The line was silent for a long moment. Then something breathed and said my name from inside my room. I went to the police. They checked my phone records. No incoming calls at 3:03. No voicemails. According to them, nothing had happened. On the way home, my phone buzzed. A message. "Why are you lying about US?" I dropped the phone. That night, I decided to record myself sleeping. I placed my laptop on the desk, camera facing the bed, lights fully on. When I reviewed the footage in the morning, my blood ran cold. At 3:03 a.m., the video glitched. For exactly 1 minute, the timestamp disappeared. When the footage resumed, I was sitting upright in bed, staring directly at the camera, smiling. I didn't remember doing that. The next night, the house felt crowded, like the walls were holding their breath. Shadows gathered in corners that shouldn't exist. At 3:03, the lights went out. In the darkness, whispers filled the room, overlapping voices speaking my thoughts before I could think them. "You always forget," they murmured. "That's why we remind you." The air grew thick. My ears rang. My phone buzzed again. A new voicemail. This one wasn't my voice. It was dozens of voices speaking together. "You promised to stay awake." Something brushed against my face. Fingers. Too many of them. When the lights flickered back on, my bedroom mirror was fogged. 3 words were written across it. "Come back to US." I realized then that 3:03 wasn't just a time. It was a door. And every night, it was opening wider. I stopped sleeping. Coffee, energy drinks, pain. Nothing could keep my eyes open forever. Every time I blinked, the room shifted like reality was thinning. I began losing time. Hours passed without memory. I'd find myself standing in rooms I didn't remember entering, holding my phone with new voicemails already saved. One night, I forced myself to stay conscious through 3:03. The clock hit the time. The world paused. No sound, no movement. Even the air felt frozen. Then the shadows moved. They peeled themselves off the walls, stretching into tall, thin shapes that bent in impossible ways. Their faces were blurred, like badly remembered dreams. "You remember now?" one said in my voice. They surrounded me, pressing close. I felt memories pouring into my head, nights I had lived but never remembered. Conversations whispered in darkness. Promises made half asleep. I saw myself standing with them in a place without light or time, agreeing to something I couldn't understand. "You belong to the hour," they whispered. I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. The shadows stepped inside me. When time restarted, I collapsed on the floor, gasping. In the mirror, my reflection blinked late, smiled late, and for the first time, it didn't stop smiling. I don't fight it anymore. At 3:03, I wake up before the phone rings. I sit up. I answer. The calls aren't threats now. They're reminders. Every night, I walk through my house, touching walls, doors, windows, marking them. The shadows watch from behind the corners, patient and proud. Sometimes, they ask me to call others. People who stay up late. People who think nights are quiet. I leave voicemails in their voices. I whisper promises they won't remember making. Tonight, someone new will answer. They'll hear their own voice telling them not to forget. At 3:03 a.m., their lights will flicker. Their room will feel crowded. And the door will open. Because the hour doesn't exist for everyone. Only for those who belong to the nights. If your phone rings at 3:03, don't answer. We already know your name.